I'm Laura Sutherland, the chair of PRCA in Scotland, and today's webinar will be talking through working from home during a crisis. We had a chat the other day on our hangout, and people were talking about still feeling, I suppose it's more not knowing, it's more the feeling of maybe being they're not doing enough, or they are feeling they're maybe doing too much, or they maybe could just do with a bit of reassurance that actually what they're feeling is fine. Normal too, well, far from normal. I think that probably describes our situation really well at the moment. We've moved from Friday drinks after work to hashtag dress up Friday, where all the birds get glammed up when they get their wine and they sit in front of their computer and then join in with their friends having a glass of wine. And whilst that's fabulous, it's obviously far from normal. And just the same, you see in that picture in the bottom left, there's a really busy street with cars and people and building works and everything. And then you go to the picture above it and there's a really well-known restaurant all boarded up because people are worried about looting and being broken into, particularly around insurance issues and everything in a time of crisis. And, if that doesn't put people in a shaky situation, then, I don't know what does. So I think it's fair to say that we're not in a normal situation just now. So I don't want people to think that we're in the new normal, because we're not. We're actually just in a really weird place at the moment. So you're not just working from home. I think that's really important to say, because you're working from home in a very extreme situation where we're in lockdown, a deadly virus is sweeping the world, we've been asked to stay indoors, there's a real situation across the world, it's not just in Scotland, and it's okay for things not to feel normal, and it's okay for you not to be banging out like work left, right and centre. But if you are, then great, if that's what's required. Again, there's no precedence for anyone that's, I suppose, an expectation of everyone should be delivering the same thing. So we are in weird times right now. And that poor laptop sitting on its own in the forest looks like it as well. So we're communicating through uncertainty. Psychologically, we're essentially grieving. Yesterday I listened to a podcast and then later on followed up in a conversation that we are in a grieving cycle. We have lost that human interaction that we've always had and that we crave. So the first image that I showed you was, people in a bar drinking and socialising, and then the next was a lady by herself, busy streets to boarded up restaurants. We are grieving what we normally have: interaction, hugs, our camaraderie from our team when we're physically in the same room as them. And we still have a job to keep on communicating ourselves, but also because we're in communication, we're communicating for on behalf of organisations. So I think that it's important to talk and help ourselves move through that cycle. And one of the things in the podcast that was really useful for sticking in my brain yesterday was what can you do to exercise your autonomy? Because at the moment we've kind of had a lot of restrictions put on ourselves. What can you do to exercise your autonomy? So what conscious decisions can you actually make? That'll help you get off autopilot. Even things like getting up in the morning. I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to have a shower. Or I'm going to finish at 5 o'clock today because I'm going to take the dog for his WALK, and I am going to then have the barbecue at 7 o'clock, and then I've got a Zoom call with so-and-so at 8 o'clock. You're still planning, you're still got your diary out, you're still doing something that feels quite normal because you're making those decisions. So if you can make those decisions for yourself, you will feel like you're actually taking back some of that autonomy, and you're actually a little bit more in control than you were before. And I found that whole piece really interesting around the psychology of it. If you want to go and listen to that podcast, it literally came out yesterday, and it's the Digital Download podcast by Paul Sutton. So go and have a listen to it. There's a psychologist who was involved within the conversation as well. Physical space. I love my office, and I have always loved looking after my office and decorating my office. And I've always felt, even when Aura was first an agency and there were 6 of us, I always felt like making it a home was going to make people feel more comfortable working there. So I think that whilst there's right now a need for us to be working from home, I also recognise that there'll be challenges, and not everybody has a dedicated office. So somewhere away from your living space is absolutely ideal. To try and keep your sort of dedicated zones, so you're distinguishing your work and your home. So for example, during the day, I work from home, I work in my office, and I use the kitchen and the downstairs loo, but I don't use the dining room, the lounge, or the TV room, or any other areas I would generally use as sort of part of my social life or my life after work. I just feel that that gives me that sort of close off time when you leave your desk and you finish your work and you mentally go into a different space. Making your space sort of comfy and likeable is really important, because you're going to be working here for another few weeks potentially. For example, in the picture you can see that the girl has some plants. Now, not only do plants look nice, but they actually are quite good for your environment, your working environment, and your oxygen levels. Things like that, just to make things feel a bit more homely and a bit more like this is your wee space and not just a table that you're going to come to and shove your laptop on and then put the laptop lid down and walk away, because you need to kind of feel comfortable with what's going around. Routine, I mean, a lot of people at the start of the lockdown, I would say for the first couple of weeks, were saying that they were finding it difficult to get into the routine, because normally they would have, especially people in London, for example, would maybe have like a 1 to 2 hour commute in and out of the city. And now they had all this spare time, and they were maybe lying in a bit longer, or they were using that time to play with the kids before they were starting work, or they were actually starting to find that they had a different routine or a different amount of time to play with, and that kind of scuppered them a little bit, and they weren't quite sure how to actually place that time. So what I have sort of been listening to in the conversations we've been having with members is that some people are finding having sort of set times when they're maybe working, they're actually working on work, and then they're maybe looking after children, and they're maybe splitting that between the parents, so that it means that both the parents can get time to work, and that equally there's enough time to play with the kids and do the homeschooling and kind of wear them out before it's bedtime, essentially, as well. And then the other parts of routine are things like, your own communication. There's so many channels and things coming at you right now, from a million Zooms to Skype to WhatsApps, emails, house party, all these different apps, lots of things that are happening. But the general advice has been that if you minimise the channels that you're using to the ones you would normally use, and stick to doing that, then you're not going to be overwhelmed by it all. And I think I was probably in danger, and maybe in week 2 to 3 of being overwhelmed by the sheer amount of stuff being thrown at me, but also the opportunity with it all as well. You just get quite excited and like shiny new things and lots of stuff happening, but it's really about then kind of zoning back and thinking, well, actually these are my communication channels, this is how I'm going to operate, and this is how I'm going to work. And it's the same with the news checking as well. If you're on Twitter and you've got your feed, I mean, I've got TweetDeck up on my computer all day, every day, and I'm monitoring certain hashtags, and I'm doing certain things, but it means you see the news all the time as well. So if you manage to change your settings in Twitter, for example, to only see certain things at a specific time, or if you just have 2 points during the day, morning and say early evening, when you're checking like either the Prime Minister's questions, First Minister questions, the briefings for the day, then you're going to know the information you need, but you're not going to be gathering all this other information in your head during that sort of period of time, which I think is important, because people are news like hungry at the moment because they want to know the updates, but we know from ourselves that there are 2 specific points during a day where you're going to get that. So and the last one is in the evening from the Prime Minister's announcement. And then set times of the day for no meetings. I think people have been guilty of having back-to-back Zoom meetings with people. You're literally going from one to the other, to the other, to the other. But if you have certain times of the day for your Zoom meetings and certain times of the day for your actual work to be able to deliver on the stuff you're talking about, then it's going to make it a bit easier for you to plan your diary and to actually to say no as well. I think that's quite important, to be able to say no at the moment and to manage that, because don't be overwhelmed. I think that's one of the dangers for everyone in this situation, is to be overwhelmed by what's happening, the changes that everyone's going through, and the sad times as well that some people are experiencing. It can really impact people emotionally. So taking regular breaks as well. There's the first dog picture in. Taking regular breaks, so not just away from your screen, kind of away from, so you don't hurt your eyes, but it's about keeping hydrated, going for a walk and checking in, because we've talked quite a lot in public relations about checking in with your colleagues, checking in with your clients. And you know what, right now, just especially when there are more vulnerable people out there, check in with your neighbours, check in with your family. We are all very conscious that at the moment everyone needs to be kind to each other, and then the clients as well. So one of the interesting conversations we had at the start of all this was, what do we do? How do we approach things with clients and or former clients, and how do we keep on speaking to them, because they're going through similar situation of the upheaval and everything. But I think, again, just checking in with them, former clients because they might need help just now, current clients because they're your bread and butter right now, you need to sustain that business, and obviously you care about them. Do they need support, or do they just need to know that you are there? Sometimes they just need to know that you're there. They don't necessarily need to enter into a big conversation because they might be going through stuff themselves. But just having that sort of comfort is really kind of what they need. And making your life easier, which is what we all love. Planning. Starting with basic aims for the week and splitting it into days. If I used to do this big thing on Instagram where I would post, and I'll show you, I have this little desk pad and it has like Monday to weekend on it. I actually use it as a mouse pad, and I have a giant post-it notepad underneath. And I basically use this to split. I basically use this to split all my main things. So my desk pad, I'll have key things like key appointments in it, my Zoom calls. And then the desk pad is really sort of action specific. Now, I used to use Trello, but I'm finding Trello at the moment too difficult to keep up, because what I'm doing on a daily basis is just changing stuff, and it's just too much of a faff to go in and faff about. But working collaboratively, I would absolutely recommend it. And it's now integrated with Slack as well, so you can have that whole sort of integrated conversation, sharing and collaborative working with work programs and flow. But I like pen and paper, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I use Hootsuite and TweetDeck, but I use TweetDeck mostly because it's, as I say, it's up on my screen, and I've got, it looks like you're coming into the Matrix or something with all my channels open, and it's got like screens of things going on. But it's great for monitoring feeds. It's great for monitoring keywords, any specific hashtags that you're looking out for, things that people are talking about. Basically, it's a form of social listening, and social listening is not only right now really, really important, it's always important for what we're doing, and not enough people do it. So I would definitely recommend, even if you start off by, searching for your hobbies to start with, so you know how it works, and then you can maybe start to integrate it in your own work. If you think of things like hashtag journal requests or hashtag PR request, that's a daily thing. It's always happening across the world practically. And those types of things to tap into are really useful for I suppose looking at opportunities, picking up sentiments, and really sort of understanding, you know, we always talk about testing the water. Canva is an amazing tool. It's an app on the phone, and it's also an online platform. And I develop a huge amount of stuff out of Canva, but I also take a lot of images from Canva. Like most of the images in this presentation are from Canva. I pay for the pro version, but there's a load of stuff that's free, loads of stuff that's free. I've literally just not long finished doing recording a webinar, how to use Canva, which is going up shortly. It's just so great for just having that sort of fresh look. It even gives you like guidelines and like literally the lines so that you can keep everything sort of nice and straight and looking good. So I definitely recommend that for creating sort of any of your content, for anything from Twitter cards to Facebook posts to presentations to a LinkedIn banner or Facebook header, anything like that. Or I use a lot actually for my e-newsletters, but also I've produced entire magazines on them before, for my e-magazines that I produce. So there's so many ways of using Canva. It's amazing, and the free option is fantastic, but the pro version, I think it's $12.99 a month or something, is absolutely worth the investment. For it saves all like the brand colors and the fonts and everything. It's brilliant. And then something I've started to do a lot more recently since my scanner broke, but also it kind of hones down all the tools. I use basically the notes application in my phone to scan, which I think is amazing. And actually, every time you take a picture, it scans to the same PDF essentially, and then you press the arrow button and you can email it to yourself, and it's amazing. So rather than having to have separate bed scanners and sheet scanners, and you know, you can just take your phone and do it, and it means that all that's on your phone if you were to need it anyway, and you can email it, you can share it however you want, you can save it to Dropbox. It's brilliant. Planning your week into time slots and prioritising tasks. I have said leave some time for learning, and that's because I'm a bit of a CPD nerd, but also because at the moment, and I think I've put this in a couple of slides, there are a lot of free and reduced price learning opportunities through PRCA, through CIPR. There's stuff that we've been doing online in our normal hangouts, so there's a lot of opportunities out there to keep on learning, especially if some of the stuff is actually created around this current situation, so it'll really help. Toggle, I use that to monitor my time. As I'm only one person, it is free and it's brilliant. You can set up clients and projects, you can dedicate all the stuff to it. You basically stop on your computer, and that's it. It's away. It's brilliant. Highly recommend, and it makes you much more aware where you're spending your time as well. Slack, I mentioned earlier, you can use that on its own to collaboratively work, or everyone is raving about Microsoft Teams because they did a big upgrade before all this happened and people are now loving it. So that's definitely a sort of additional tool. Zoom for meetings, and also to record content such as presentations. You can also record podcasts as well, and you can save the chat function so that you're having recorded like the whole conversation. So it's a really great tool. I put a drone in there because I was thinking of other tools that we could use to communicate with people and do stuff, and I thought, well, definitely a drone, but I'm not sure that that's actually allowed in certain areas. So and yeah, they keep on learning. It's actually sometimes a distraction, which is good. And I think it's good for you to plan when you're going to keep learning new things or refreshing current skills. And again, coming back to what we were talking about psychologically earlier, it's kind of giving you a little bit of control as to your own development, and you're making that decision to go and do it. One of the suggestions I've said is, why don't you plan your 2020 learning goals just now? So have a look at what's out there and see how that all fits in with what's available. and plan that ahead. As I said, lots of free resources. Obviously as well, the PRCA at the moment has a 6-month free membership. So please do take advantage of that while you can. There are also numerous blogs and podcasts.
At prca.co.uk.
Yes. There are a number of blogs and podcasts that are by PR people, but also non-specific PR things like business, entrepreneurship. There are so many great things out there to be tuning into. So definitely have a look at that and just take your time and have a read through stuff. Don't go down a rabbit hole, but as if you set your parameters, then you'll kind of come away thinking, yep, I've learned one thing from today and that's this. And you can implement it, and there's nothing more satisfying. Remember, we're here for you and that you're human, and we're in a situation and no one is doing it right. And I think that's imposter syndrome is set in to a number of people I've spoken to recently. And I think that as long as you remember that nobody's doing it right because there's no right or wrong way, everyone just has to trust that their instincts are right and that what they're doing is if you're doing work, then do it to the best of your abilities. But also, if it's okay to take time out of your day to do family stuff and life things. It's okay to be worried about the future. It's okay to ask other people for help and support, and it's okay to feel however you feel, because everybody's absolutely different. Some of us are bonkers, some of us create more work for ourselves just for fun, but hashtag we're in it together. So I think that's the most important thing. And another dog picture, that we're in it together. It's not because of something that you've done, it's not something that I've done, it's not something that our industry's done. It's a thing that's happened to every single person and every single business. And I think that should have some sort of degree of comfort that because we're all in it together, we're all going to have to get out of it together. We're all going to have to move on together. And I think that, again, coming back to a collaborative approach, I think that's really going to help. And it's really going to push everybody into not necessarily a positive frame of mind, because not everybody's like that, but I think as long as people can see that there's a future and there's something positive that they could be part of in the future, that will give people inspiration to keep on keeping calm, doing what they're doing, and just get through the situation.